Well, good morning, my dear. I'm so excited that you are here. I am going to introduce an amazing lady here, but first let's start. We are on a journey to uncover the secrets of living with favor. Favor is an acronym for the 5 key areas or key areas of growth where I focused over the last 40 years. I didn't know it at the time, but as a reflection back, I've discovered that favor is what kind of showed up for me, and it stands for faith, abundance, vitality, overflow, and relationships. So each week we talk about those areas with our expert guests. I started this show to honor my 40 years as an entrepreneur, and the promise of this show is to introduce you to these expert guests and offer real solutions to your business and life struggles. Sometimes I even share a bit of advice or a training here and there. But welcome to Living with Favor. I'm Lisa Mosby. I'm your host, and I'm here to fulfill my purpose, which is to advise, train, and come alongside you with simple solutions for life and business. Today's my expert guest is Kristen Fields Chadwick, and Kristen is a holistic podcaster, and I had never heard that term holistic used in the technology field. So I was so intrigued when I met you, Kristen, and I want to know how you create magic. Well, this is my perception. You create magic using people's life experiences. You help them to manage and promote their podcasts. That's how I would describe you. I don't know if you're in alignment with that. I didn't read that on your website when I was looking at it. I was like, she creates magic. And so I'm going to let you tell your story, though. Would you share a little bit about your journey and why you started podcasting? And we'll dig deeper into to how you like this word holistic, this message that you share with folks. But yeah, tell me your story. How did you get?
I love that. Creating magic. I might use that.
Yeah, it's how I felt when I read your website when I was looking through. It's like, wow, she really creates magic. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, that's pretty much I get to come alongside people who are ready to share their voice and their story, whether it is through their entrepreneurial experience of building business, ministry. It could be just sharing their story purely in that essence. And I get to be the vessel that is shooting it out into all of podcasting apps and spaces and championing each and every one of them in their own bravery and their courage to press record in their story.
That's the magic. Like you use the word bravery and courage. So why? I'm kind of curious why you started doing this. How did you get into it?
Yeah. So it's one of those stories that I don't know if I ever would have consciously chosen podcasting. However, I will say when I was a little girl, I would sit in my room with my cassette tape player and press record and be like, you're listening to KFM Rocks. And I would pretend to be a radio host. So it was in my blood. And just fast forward to early 30s, and I had a good friend of mine who knew where I was in my stage of life. I had 4 young kids. I was a personal trainer, and I wanted to go back to school to be a counselor. And I did. I got into a program, and just at the very last minute, I just felt a gut check, like, no, I don't think this is quite it. And so I actually unenrolled about 2 weeks before the program started. Like I had already bought some of my books and was like, it did not make sense why I was unenrolling. And then a couple of days later, a good friend of mine called and was like, Kristen, I'm leaving radio to start a podcast. I would love for you to be our producer. And I was just like, what is a producer and what is a podcast? I mean, I listen to podcasts here and there, like on my little MP3 player or my iPod Touch or something. But I didn't know what a producer was. And so he was like, why don't you just come and you're going to listen to a broadcast producer and you can figure out how to do it in the podcasting space. And so I went to 2 recordings, which were amazing opportunities. Like I met Ruth Graham, and so Billy Graham's daughter.
Okay.
And so that was really cool. And just that experience of being in a studio and watching an interview, it really was so fascinating to me. And but underneath all of that was, I will forever be grateful that he and his wife saw something in me that I didn't know was there. And really his his direction was like, I believe that you can take this podcast from nothing into something, and you're going to figure it out on the along the way. And that's pretty much the freedom and the autonomy that he gave me to launch this podcast. And we did. We went from nothing to top 25 kids and family podcasts within that year, and got to meet amazing authors and speakers, and really hear the hearts of people. And also along that journey, realize that everybody has a story. Whether you have the look that you have it all together, and you're famous for being a family expert or a marriage expert, there's story. Those moments behind the scenes or before recording were some of the most precious times to hear people's like true heart. And then press record and hear, kind of the victory along the way. It really impacted me to know that everybody's heart matters, and there's a fight for everybody's heart. And so that's kind of where that holistic piece came in, because I mean, you heard me say I was a trainer, so wellness it matters to me. And seeing through the perspective of watching for 4 years very influential people having their own battles, their own story, and getting a peek behind the curtain, it really just opened my eyes to like we're all just human, and we all are healing, and we're all wholehearted, and we all need somebody to come alongside and be like, hey, this part of you matters. And just anchoring into that.
Yeah. I was last week, I did a training on connecting your vision to something greater, serving and impacting on this global scale. And, I think that you kind of described how holistic podcasting is that. And then how you tapped into your heart, and now you're listening to other people's heart. So do you have words of wisdom for people who might be listening to this and thinking, am I a podcaster? Everybody has a story, so everybody can be a podcaster, but how do you bring comfort to folks to share that story, to allow it to come out? Because there's so much value in just our stories, in either putting it in a book, putting it in a podcast, and helping people to know that they're not alone, that we can come alongside them. And then what they have to say is so valuable to other folks.
Yeah.
How would you comfort someone or bring them along? You mentioned come alongside. I mentioned come alongside. That's kind of our mission as women of faith, is like to bring people along with us, to be the net for your business.
Yeah. I think so. I love how we typically walk the life that we are going to speak to, right? To the people that we're going to speak to. So in my journey, I would say that growing up, I was a very observant girl. Maybe when I was young, I was a little bit more drama, outspoken, and then it really shrank in. I was the youngest of 4, and I had 3 older brothers who were very funny, and they just were always the life of the house. And so I loved watching. So I got real quiet. And fast forward to working for my friend as a podcast producer. He would slowly, and his wife would slowly invite me to respond on the mic about a conversation. And then it turned into his wife and I had our own segment of a show, which was really uncomfortable for me. I did not like to be on the mic. I like to be behind the scenes. And so I would really struggle to be like, I really don't want to. And then it slowly became, I would hear more and more like my friends that were like, Kristen, this is so much fun hearing what's actually in your brain. Like, we know that you're always thinking, like you can see your wheels turning, and we just want to pull it out of you. And so that was really helpful for me, to have that encouragement of somebody else saying, we want to hear what you're thinking about, what's on your heart. And so that was years of just hearing that over and over again. And in my own relationship with God, which is um, pretty pivotal to understanding what my identity was, and really like anchoring into, He has created me to be bold, brave, and beautiful. And that's just like a very beginning snippet of an identity statement that I have in my life. And so really just anchoring into that story of like, I do have something to say, had to begin with me in the first place. And so after about 4 years, my dear friends were like, you have our blessing if you want to do something else, if you want to start your own podcast. And so I did. I started Wholistic Hearts, which was my story of faith, of just going from a lot of head knowledge of who God was to heart knowledge of who
Yeah.
He is,
Yeah.
and just sharing that. And so just over and over that practice of like, no, people will like, even if it's just for that one person that's struggling, it's worth it. And so that story in itself, and now as I have 2 podcasts in the last couple of years, and they're doing great, and I see the influence that it can have. I remember the first time I got an email from a listener who thanked me for sharing my faith journey story, and she had been away from the church for decades. And she was like, this totally changes my perspective of who God is. And I printed it out and stuck it on my computer of like, the next time that I'm like, I don't want to record, it just takes so much effort. Um, so with all of that to say, now as I am able to have this amazing gift of people who are, either they feel this, there, I mean, it's the gamut. There's the people that are like, I want to start a podcast. I know I'm called to talk. It is so easy for me to talk behind the mic. People say I talk very well. To the person who is, oh my goodness, I stumble over my words, but I feel this inner voice in me saying, you need to start a podcast. Or I've had probably 5 people in the handfuls of podcasters that I've worked with that have been like, I woke up in the middle of the night and God was like, you need to start a podcast, and this is what it's going to be called. and they're like, not the people that you think would have a podcast, like the gift of gab people. That is a great, amazing gift. And then God picks these women out that are more quiet, and I totally am like, yes, yes, it's going to work out great because I've seen it, in my own story. So, yeah.
Nice. You mentioned that sometimes you don't want to do a podcast. I totally understand that. Sometimes I don't want to get on, and well, actually that never happens to me because I'm a gab person. So I want to talk to people all day, every day.
Mhm.
But still, it doesn't matter which side you're on. Podcasting, it can be daunting, creating consistent content, finding guests, creating the graphics, doing the promoting, growing your audience. I mean, those are the challenges that I'm experiencing right now. I'm talking from my own self. And then the technology, how do I do an RSS feed? How do I get on all the channels to make sure that I have the greatest impact and can push it out to the world? How do we simplify this in our brains? Because for me, I mentioned at the beginning, it's about simple solutions. Like, I don't need you to go into all the details, but give us a mindset of, okay, yes, all of those things have to happen, but it can be simpler. I know that that's what you do for people, what you may be doing for me at some point in the near future,
Yes.
promoting and alleviating some of that. How do you give it? Can you share some light on and give those of us a little bit more confidence to take this step to move forward, to I'll say dumb it down for me, make it simple. Like give me some simplicity on how I can use this maybe to grow my business.
Yeah.
And then take that first step.
Yeah. So first I would find somebody who's already done it. So whether that's hiring a coach or a podcast manager, I mean, that's by far the easiest way to do it. There are people that are like, I just want to press record, send you the audio, and you figure out how it gets onto all the apps. I have no idea how to do that. So there's that person. If you're wanting, if you're wanting to DIY it, just know that it does take time and it does take energy. For me, I love learning. I've always loved learning things. And so I love to take new podcasters through a step-by-step process if they want to be a DIYer. Even it, because you could take hours researching different places and how you do this and how you do this, and then it's the implementation. So for me, I've already done this. I've done this so many times. I've probably done it over 100 times for people. And so what's exciting is that you've got my brain, which has walked through this world since 2016. And so we just go through step by step of, okay, if you want to make money in a podcast, then more than ever, you need a plan. You need a strategy so you don't lose umph. We've got to build this train and start gaining momentum down the track. And it's going to take a little bit of a process, and you've got to have alignment, like those tracks on the train, the alignment, keeping you in the right lane, right? So so first things first is I love to sit down with podcast clients and we talk about, okay, what's the goal? Why do you want to start a podcast? What's the goal of the podcast? Let's brain dump all of your episode ideas, because most of the time when people are ready to start a podcast, they've already got a few thoughts brewing about topics where they want to go. And so we really hit the coaching side of podcasting first, because you can definitely start off with all of the tech things, like the RSS feed, which I'll talk about in a second, like what equipment to buy, all of those things. But the heart behind it matters more than the equipment. So I like to start off at the heart of it first, and the strategy and intentionality first and foremost. And then we get into, okay, so let's talk about equipment. You're going to need a good mic. You're going to need headphones. You're going to need somewhere to record. You're going to need a platform that is going to be like your antenna for the radio, which is called a hosting platform. So there's Libsyn, Podbean, Anchor, all of those things. And we talk about the pros and cons of each of those. So I'll answer your question about an RSS feed.
Yeah.
So an RSS feed is like your address for your podcast audio. It is a way that, like when you load your audio onto a hosting platform, you have to have an RSS feed. It's basically, like I said, an address for where all your audio is, and it will continue to pull from this RSS feed every time you upload it. So we use Libsyn. Libsyn is a hosting platform that's been around since pretty much the beginning of podcasts. They're very well run. They have amazing customer service. And the product that you buy, because it does cost money, but you get what you pay for in the podcasting space. So you're buying storage basically, and a place to host your RSS feed. So every time that you upload an episode into this hosting platform, it's grabbing your RSS feed and updating into Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Audible, all of the different podcast apps. So that's basically what an RSS feed. So I think, like I said, though, all of those things are doable in step-by-step processes. As with anything, it's going to feel overwhelming when you look at the whole picture. But if you come alongside again, and you are helping somebody step by step go through this process, it's less daunting. And especially if you've already anchored in your why and the heart behind it, it's so much more smooth.
It just flows. It
Mhm.
starts to just flow, and you get to focus on what you do best or what you want to talk about. Yeah, that's what I've noticed. The technical stuff can be difficult the first few episodes, and then it's like, wow, it just gets a lot easier. How do we convert that? Like, the why is to tell your story because you can have an impact, and there are some expenses involved in podcasting. So how do we turn this into an income stream? And even more specifically, is it possible to create a residual income from podcasting? Should business owners, should entrepreneurs add this as an additional stream of income to how they serve the world in everything else that they do? Because I think there's such tremendous value in telling the story and what you do, and interviewing other people. I think for me, I see so much value in that.
Yeah.
And I want it to be able to pay for itself or cover the costs of it.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So I love to give you reality and
Yeah.
the potential. So reality is it's for podcasting, it does take time. So with podcasting, you have many, many options of how to bring in income. It may not be direct income. It might be indirect income. So you could do courses. So if you're a coach, I work with a lot of coaches. So a lot of my coaches do memberships, or they do a course a couple of times a year. So that's where when I say strategic planning is before you even start recording, we've got a year planned out of what's your current business plan and your goals, so that we can match that with your podcast. So if you have a business coach that is launching, or let's say a financial coach that's launching a budget something course in August. So I would suggest to that person, okay, so from now until August, how are you building up to promote funneling people into that course, that budgeting course? How can you speak to the pain points that your people are listening in and they are feeling currently, to stir up, like, hey, I see your problem. I see your pain point. I see what you're laying in bed at night and thinking about. And I want to invite you into freedom through this course. So there's courses that you can do. You could also have, of course, sponsorships and ads. So finding people to partner with. I'm sure everybody's heard like the My Pillow ads on all those, like I think of Joe Rogan and all of those people that have huge followings, and they have advertisement companies come alongside them and basically organically put in advertisements in there. So you can definitely go that route. That aspect, though, is going to be more for down the road when your numbers have reached a certain point. So that's why I encourage more of this is what I do, and I would love for you to come in and let's deepen our relationship from a ear to ear, ear to mic or relationship to now where we're actually coaching, or we're in a teaching environment where you're learning more personally from me. So group coaching, one-on-one coaching. So in that respect, it can be a huge increase in who you're impacting. So with podcasting, I forgot to say this too. With podcasting, you are creating the famous know, like, trust factor, because when you're using your voice, even people listening to you, Lisa, right now, or me, they're hearing our personalities, right? So they're like, okay, Lisa's definitely my jam. She is like a firecracker. She's an entrepreneur for 40 years. I want to get to know her at a deeper level than just listening to her talk every week on YouTube. I would love to work with her. How do I work with her? How do I get into a mastermind with her? And that is the beauty of podcasting, is that you really get to know the host on a more personal level, because they're sharing their story, they're sharing how they teach, they're sharing their personality through the stories that they share, context, introductions, networking, all of those things. So it's a good like teaser or a taster for somebody to hear. I call it their flavor, and to see if they really want to work with that person.
That's a lot. Yeah, y'all can go back and listen to the recording, because that was like, drop the mic. We have a lot of wisdom here, and we have a limited amount of time. I do get her a little bit longer afterward when we turn off the recording. I have 4 or 5 more questions that I'm going to ask, because I'm excited about this opportunity, this journey. Usually I was so excited to interview that I forgot to ask of those 5 principles. I'm guessing I know which one you'll say, but which one is the strongest, most present in your business? Faith, abundance. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Faith, abundance, vitality, overflow, or relationships. Which one would be the one that really resonates with you, and why? I guess.
I have to pick one.
Yes, I know we all use them. Like, I didn't know it when I started 40 years ago that those were the things that were going to come up. But as I've worked with different coaches and want to put this new message out there after 40 years, it's like, well, this is where everything kind of lands. And then we took those concepts and put them into an acronym, so it was easy to identify. But if you could pick one, what would it be today?
Oh gosh, this is really hard. I really want to say faith and relationships. So, yeah. But I maybe I'll just go to relationships, because I will say, what you believe, like whether you believe what I believe or not, I still believe that you have an absolute gorgeous story and a purpose here. And so I adore relationships with my clients. So I will be that one that is praying for you on my walks. I will be that one that is sending you personal text messages. I do listen to your episodes. So even though I have bukus of clients, I still try to listen to most episodes, because I really want to know what's going on and where they're headed. And yeah, so relationships are really important to me, and really connecting with my clients and hearing them, because those are the top 3 things that are important to me, is to be seen, be heard, and be known. And so if I'm not doing that with my clients, then I don't feel at peace in myself. So yeah.
We're not living our purpose. I'm saying, for me, I say I'm God's cheerleader. I'm here to cheer on those women in business, because it was me and I had them. And now at a certain age, the switch flips, and you get to be that for everyone else. And so I completely understand what you're talking about. And I think that's what brings us together and what bonds us in friendship and in business. So, I'm out of time for this segment. So I just want to thank you so much for your inspiration, your wisdom, for coming on here, being honest, and like just sharing your heart. And if anyone wants to connect with Kristen, in the show notes, you'll be able to find her. Her website is KristenFieldsChadwick.com. You can go there and go ahead and listen to the replay. Otherwise, connect with her later. And again, thank you so much, Kristen, for being with me today.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's been a joy.
Yeah, my pleasure. I hope you take away a little bit of advice that will, unleash your confidence. Maybe you discovered something unique about you, or uncovered the experience that makes you an expert to help others. Take that and move forward with it. Step into it. How are you going to use that to make the world a better place? That's kind of what we're all about here. I'm Lisa Mosby, your host. Thank you for letting me share a bit of advice and introduce you to some of my amazing expert friends. I want you to experience joy and personal fulfillment running your own successful business while creating a residual income for yourself. If you want to talk more about what that could look like and how you could grow your business online, please connect with me. Just go to lisamosby.com and click book time. We can dig deeper and talk more about your business and how we can grow and expand your reach to have that global impact that so many of us need to make. We need to step out there and do that for other people, not so much for ourselves, but we need to make a difference, make the world a better place. The best part of this show is always when we get to linger longer and have more conversation afterwards. So if you can join us live on our Zoom calls each week, we will stick around after so we can go a little bit deeper. I hope to see you all next week with a new topic, a new expert guest. Come on back. And again, thank you so much to Kristen, my guest this week.